Okay, so attendance will be taken automatically by the Google Meet. So those of you that have not joined yet, so please, the class rep, can you remind the in your group. Okay, so we are going to look at chapter 6 on circulatory system. Okay, so let's look at the first question. It asks you, the table refers to the structure and capillaries of capillaries and arteries. So please tick in the suitable boxes to indicate the correct statement. So basically, from this, you have to know the characteristics of the blood vessels. Okay, so basically, our blood vessels, we have three types, which is arteries, capillaries, and also veins. Okay, so obviously, the valves are not present in capillaries and arteries. They are present only in the veins. So tak adalah. And then wall consists of single layer of cells. So that one is obviously for capillaries and not for arteries. So capillaries, it has to be one cell thick so that it allows diffusion of substances such as nutrients, removal of wastes, so that the waste from the cell, metabolic waste that is, from the cell, from the respiring cells, enters into the blood through the blood capillaries. So blood capillaries, they are very porous. Okay, so they are one cell thick. They are very porous. Okay, so artery, it has arteries and veins. It has three layers. Okay, we have the tunica intima, media, and also tunica adventitia. So tak adalah, so it does not apply to arteries for this single layer of cells of for the wall of the artery. And then so endothelial cells are present. Endothelial cells are cells that lines the inner lining. So the tunica intima, bahagian dalam tu kan. So they are made up of endothelial cells. Okay, so endothelial cells are present for all the three types of blood vessels. Ada pada blood capillaries, ada pada artery, dan juga ada pada veins. Okay, so endothelial cells are present for all the three blood vessels. Okay, so next question, figure 6 shows the structure of human heart. Okay, so determine the stage of cardiac cycle shown in this figure. Give a reason to your support. Okay, to support your answer. Okay, so let me just. So if you look at this diagram here, okay, mm, okay, so you see that the blood from the atrium is flowing into the ventricle. Okay, so when the blood flows from atrium to the ventricle, it means that the atrium is contracting. So when the atrium is contracting, it means that the atrium is in the state of systole. So this is atrial systole. And then because the ventricles are accepting blood, is collecting blood that is coming from the atrium. So ventricle is diastole. So atrial systole, ventricle diastole. Okay, so that is the answer. So the support yang telah yang saya cakap tadi kan. So atrium is contracting to push all the blood from the atrium into the ventricle. Ventricle is in the state of diastole, ventricle diastole, because it is collecting blood. Okay, it is collecting blood coming from the atrium. Okay, so blood flows from atria to ventricle. That is another reason that you can write. Okay, blood flows from atria to ventricle. So ada dua lah, dua markah kat situ. The stage and your explanation. Okay. So and then number 2, state the stage in the cardiac cycle that creates the highest pressure inside the heart chambers. So heart chambers, atrium, ventricle. So the highest pressure is when the heart chambers are contracting. So contraction is systole. Okay, so systole lah. So kan the ventricular systole. Okay, ventricle, uh, your answer should not be atrial systole or just systole. You have to be specific. It has to be ventricular systole. Okay, ventricular systole. Why do we choose ventricle? Because ventricle, it is the largest. It has large chambers. Okay, and especially for the left ventricle, it has thick wall. So the contraction, especially for the left ventricle, it exert high pressure for the blood to be pumped out of the ventricle, out of the heart into the aorta to be distributed or flows into the systemic circuit. Okay, so the answer will be ventricular systole. Okay, so explain the significance of ventricle contraction begin at the apex of the heart. What is apex of the heart? So if you remember, so this is the apex of the heart. Hujung jantung ni. Okay, apex. Okay, apex of the heart. So if you remember, so this is the conduction system of the heart. Okay, so conduction is the transmission of impulse, okay, along the cardiac muscle. So we know that the initiation, okay, the initiation of impulse transmission, it occurs at the SA node. Okay, so SA node is located in the upper wall of the right atrium tu kan. SA node ni. So it generates electrical impulse that spread through the atrial wall, okay, that causes the atrium to contract, and then the impulse, okay, will reach AV nodes. Okay, so there will be a slight delay, and then it travels through the bundle of his and bundle branches, which is along the septum towards the apex of the heart. So from the apex of the heart, the impulse will be transmitted through the Purkinje fibers, okay, which spread through the ventricular wall. Okay, so the contraction of the ventricle, it is transmitted along the septum until it reaches the apex, and then from the apex, it is transmitted along the Purkinje fiber. So it causes the ventricle to be contracted from bottom upward, okay, from bottom of the heart upward, so that it can push, the ventricle can exert high pressure so that the blood is pumped out of the heart into, this one is into the aorta, okay, and this one from the right atrium into the pulmonary arteries to the pulmonary circuit. So that's why it has to be the transmission of impulse. It has to start from the apex of the heart for the ventricle. Okay, contraction of the ventricle has to begin from the bottom of the heart, apex, hujung jantung tu, and then spread through the ventricular wall, causing the ventricle to contract from bottom upward. Okay. If you have questions, please ask. Okay. I am not turning on my camera. So if you need me to turn on my camera, so please do so. Okay, so next question. It says here, cardiac output is the measurement of blood volume pumped by ventricle in 1 minute. So you have to know the definition of this lah, cardiac output ni. Okay, berapa banyak darah yang dipump keluar dari ventricle, okay, dari ventricle dalam masa 1 minit. Okay, so kedua-dua ventricle lah, left and right ventricle. So in order for you to get the cardiac output, so you have to know the formula. So cardiac output equals to stroke volume kali dengan heart rate. Okay, heart rate. Okay, so it says here, given here that the stroke volume is 70, okay, 70 centimeter cube. Okay, so the table below shows the heart rate of an individual at different intervals. So calculate the cardiac output at 5 minutes and also 25. So senang je lah. Kita tengoklah 5 minit berapa, 70 kan. Kita tengok 25 berapa, 110. show your calculation je lah. So first one is cardiac output equals to apa? Stroke volume kan? Stroke volume is 270 centimeter cube. So don't forget to write your your units. Okay, so 70 centimeter per cube in one stroke. Okay, in one stroke, in one beat. So this is per beat. Okay, 70 centimeter cube per beat. You times by heart rate. Heart rate is how much? 70 beat per minute kan? So beat you can cancel. So kalilah 70 kali 70 berapa kelas? Tolong calculatekan.
4,900.
Okay, 4,900. Thank you. So 4,900 unit dia apa? Centimeter cube per minute. So it means that within 1 minute, your heart is going to circulate 4,500 centimeter cube. So that is roughly about 5 liters lah. Yeah? So 5 liters of blood is pumped by your heart in 1 minute. So that is for the minute 5. Okay, so for the minute 25, okay. So sama lah juga. So cardiac output berapa? 70 kan? Tadi dia punya stroke volume centimeter cube per beat. Kali dengan berapa? 110 beat per minute. So you all calculate lah. So you have to include your units. So if you just write 4,500 without the unit, so you will not get the full mark. Okay. So yang ni 70 kali 110 berapa?
7,700.
Unit dia berapa? Unit dia apa?
Mililiter per minit. cm cube.
Centimeter cube per minute ataupun boleh juga ml per minute. So centimeter cube sama dengan milliliter, right? Okay. Okay, so it suggests a reason why it is important that cardiac output increases during exercise. Okay. So when you are exercising, your muscle is actively contracting. Okay. So when your muscle is actively contracting, it requires a lot of ATP. Okay. A lot of ATP. So to generate energy. Okay. So how to generate energy? We have learned this during the last semester for cellular respiration, kan? So cellular, in order to increase a rate of cellular respiration, you have to increase the oxygen supply. Okay. So the oxygen supply will feed the cellular respiration. So through cellular respiration, it generates ATP, and the byproduct is carbon dioxide, kan? So the respiring cell also generates a lot of carbon dioxide. So when you are exercising, all this happens. So in order for your cell to receive a lot of oxygen, and also what does another chemical molecule requires for cellular respiration? It needs fuel. Okay, so it needs a lot of glucose. So in order to supply a lot of oxygen from the blood to your cell that is respiring, to supply a lot of glucose to the respiring cells, and also to generate energy, so your heart has to pump really quickly. Okay, so heart rate will increase. Okay, heart rate increase. So blood circulation increase. So that is why cardiac output has to increase. So due to heart rate increases, that cause more blood to be circulating, okay, throughout your body. So the answer then suggests a reason why it is important that cardiac output increases during exercise. The first point is to supply more oxygen for the cellular respiration, for the increased metabolic rate. Okay, first point. Second point, so that also the increase in blood flow will supply more glucose for cellular respiration. Second point. Okay. Third point, so this is to generate more ATP, okay, more energy for cellular respiration, for the increased muscle contraction. And then for the last point that you can also include is to remove more carbon dioxide, okay, from the rice-bearing cell, and also to reduce blood acidity. Bila badan kita ni menghasilkan banyak sangat carbon dioxide, it causes your blood to be acidic, okay. So when your blood is acidic, so those excess carbon dioxide has to be exhaled out. Okay, so this reduces blood acidity and also to regulate blood pH. Okay, so there's this. Kat situ satu point, so I give you a couple of answers that you can take note. Okay, so next questions. Okay, so question number 2, figure 7 shows a schematic diagram of closed circulatory system in vertebrate U and also V. So if we look at this diagram here, okay, so this is basically the heart, okay, so the heart, okay, for this organism. So the heart flows, the heart will pump, okay, the heart will pump the blood to the pulmonary circuit dulu sini, into the gills. So we know automatically for organism that has gills is aquatic organism lah, such as fish. Okay. So in the gills there will be exchange of respiratory gas. Okay. So the initially the blood that flows from the heart will be oxygen poor blood. Okay, oxygen poor blood. So as the blood flows into the capillaries of the gills, so gas exchange occurs, and then the blood that comes out of the gill will be oxygen rich blood. Okay, so oxygen rich blood will flows into the systemic circuit. Okay, to supply oxygen to the body cells. Okay, tissues. Okay, and then the blood that flows out of the systemic capillaries will be oxygen poor blood and then return back to the heart. For this type of circulation, we call it as single circulatory system. Okay, single circulatory system. The heart only pumps the blood in a complete circuit once. Sekali je. Kan, sekali je kan. Okay, so daripada gills pergi terus kepada systemic circuit. And as for the vertebrate V, as you can see, it has the heart, where the heart pumps the blood into the pulmonary circuit and then return back to the heart for the second contraction of the heart to pump into the systemic circuit. So this is double circulation lah for vertebrate V. Okay, so single versus double circulatory system. Okay, so both are closed circulatory system. Why is it closed? Because the blood is confined within the blood vessels. Kan, so darah hanya akan ada dalam blood vessels. The blood will not mix with your body fluid, the interstitial fluid. That one is for open circulatory system, such as for grasshoppers, okay, or insects, other insects. Okay, so compare the closed circulatory system of vertebrate U and V. So this one, we know this is single circulatory system. This is double circulatory system. What is the similarity between the two systems? Both, it uses the heart. Okay, it uses the heart to pump blood throughout the body. Okay, so that is the most obvious answer that you can write. And then second, as mentioned, blood is confined within the blood vessels. Okay, so because blood is confined within the blood vessels, blood will not mix with the interstitial fluid. Yeah, so that is another point that you can add into your answer. Okay, so here it is, the mark given here is 3 marks. Okay, so usually for similarities, because it only provides you with one box here, so 1 mark je lah, dia nak 1 point saja. Tapi for the difference, it asks for 2 points. Okay, so you have to give 2 that are you are comparing apple to apple. Tak boleh lah compare apple dengan durian, so dia tak jadi, walaupun facts tu betul tapi dia tak mendatangkan markah. Contohnya kalau awak cakap kat sini kan, for the apa nama, single circulation, what is the difference between the double circulation? So for single blood, so the heart pumps the blood once. Okay, the heart pumps the blood once. Okay, once in a complete circuit. Okay, so for this for the double circulation, the heart pumps the blood twice. Okay, twice in a complete circuit. Okay, in a complete circuit. So for the second point that you can add, for the structure of the heart. For single circulatory system, such as for the fish, it only has one atrium and one ventricle. For the vertebrate here with the double circulation, it has two atrium and two ventricles. So that one you can also include here lah. Okay, so one atrium, one ventricle, and then this one two atrium and two ventricle. Okay, two ventricles. So you have to compare apple to apple lah. So tak boleh lah awak comparekan dia berbeza. Awak cakap sini the heart pumps the heart pumps the blood once. Ini awak letak the number of chambers. Salah lah, walaupun facts tu betul, but because you are not comparing apple to apple, so jadi salah. So make sure that you are comparing the same thing. Okay, and then another point that you could add into your answer is that for single circulation, the blood flows with low pressure. Kan, sebab from the gills, so the blood does not return back to the heart. So from the gills, the blood will flow with low pressure into the systemic circuit. So that's why for these organisms such as fish, they have to increase the blood circulation, they have to swim. They have to constantly move. Okay, so to make sure that the muscle contraction aids in the movement of blood that flows with low pressure, okay, into the systemic circuit. So and then for the for the double circulatory system, the blood flows with high pressure. Okay, blood flows with high pressure. And then also because the question doesn't ask for specific differences, such as dia tak cakap pun nak suruh bezakan structure ke apa ke. So make sure that you read the question carefully. Okay, dia nak structure ke ataupun dia nak perbezaan secara general ke. So make sure that you read the question carefully. So for because it has to the question asks you for general comparison, you can also give answer examples of organisms. So another point that you could add is the difference. For that one, this one involve fish, for example, an aquatic organism. And then for the vertebrate, you can give example like mammals, humans, okay? Examples of vertebrates, right? Okay, and then next question, blood and hemolymph are circulating fluids of the circulatory system. Give two differences between blood and hemolymph. Okay, blood and hemolymph. Blood is confined within blood vessels. Okay, hemolymph, there will be a mixture of blood and interstitial fluid. So such as, for example, those that are found in insects with open circulatory system. Okay. So dia nak markah dua perbezaan lah. And dua perbezaan. So the first point for blood, it is confined within blood vessels. Okay. And then for the hemolymph, the blood will mix with interstitial fluid. Okay, directly bathe the organs and also tissues. Right. And then for the second point that you could add is that for blood, it contains obviously red blood cells. Okay, that the pigments are hemoglobins. Okay, but for the hemolymph, it does not contain any red blood cells. It does not contain any hemoglobin, but the pigment within the blood of these insects, the pigments, we call it as hemocyanin. Okay, hemocyanin. It contains hemocyanin ada A kat sini. Okay, hemocyanin. Okay, hemocyanin. Okay, so those are the difference that you can include in your answer. And then kalau blood, it is confined within blood vessels tadi kan. So it flows in closed circulatory system. It involves closed circulatory system. This one, it involves open circulatory system, right? Or blood flows in open-ended vessels. Okay, open circulation. And then for blood, it is found in human, in mammals, in vertebrates. Okay, vertebrates. And then for hemoglobin, it is found in insects such as grasshopper. So you can give examples of organisms sebab dia tak bagi spesifik, secara general je. Okay. Tengok soalan nak apa. So kalau nak in terms of structure, you give structure lah. Okay, explain how closed circulatory system benefits large active mammals. Okay, closed circulatory system means that the blood is confined within blood vessels. So this is to maintain high blood pressure, especially when the blood flows in the systemic circuit. Okay, so systemic circuit. So to maintain high blood pressure. Okay. Yeah, so the first point is to maintain high blood pressure. Okay, so closed circulatory system ensures the blood maintains with high pressure. Blood flows with high pressure. Okay, so second, when blood flows with high pressure, especially into the systemic circuit, this ensures effective delivery and distributions of oxygen and nutrients, okay, to all the body parts, okay, and also ensures effective exchange of materials. And then another point that you could include in your answer, effective removal of carbon dioxide and metabolic wastes. And then the last point that you could also include in your answer, mammals depends on efficient blood flows to maintain constant body temperature. Okay, so this is to maintain constant body temperature. That is the benefit of closed circulatory system for active mammals, large active mammals. Okay. So next question, cardiac cycle is the alternating contraction and relaxation of the heart in one complete heartbeat. Okay, cardiac cycle ni dia ada 3 phase tu kan. Mana tadi gambar tadi, ada gambar tak? Ni. Soalan, kalau if you need to refer to cardiac cycle in this workbook, here, so this is cardiac cycle. Okay, so it has 3 phases, kan? So these are the phases that you have to take note, and the duration, okay, and the duration of each phases, kan? So atrial ventricular diastole 0.4 second, atrial systole 0.1 second, and atrial ventricular systole 0.3. So in one heartbeat, it only take 0.8 second. 0.4 campur 0.1 campur 0.3. So one heartbeat takes about 0.8 second. Okay. So back to the question. Okay, soalan ni dia tengok dia punya trick dia, apa dia. Describe how cardiac cycle is coordinated. Saya nak panggil nama, saya nak dengar jawapan from one of you. Sekejap. Ada siapa nak volunteer sebelum saya sebut nama? Shah Danish?
Yes, madam.
Boleh saya dengar jawapan awak?
Contraction phase C1 kan madam? Contraction phase is which a heart chamber contracts and pump blood. Relaxation phase is when heart chamber is relaxed and fills with blood.
Okay, saya dah agak dah nak jawab macam tu. Okay, kita KIV jawapan awak. Okay, soalan ni saya cakap dia adalah soalan yang trick. Sebab apa dia trick? Saya nak dengar jawapan lagi seorang. Nurul Iman Nadira.
Yes, madam.
Can I hear your answer, please?
Boleh. SA node, pass impulse through gap junction into connecting cardiac muscle cell and throughout the atria. Impulse reach AV node and dilate to allow atria completely transfer blood into ventricle. Impulse spread to bundle of His, to AV bundle branches, to base of ventricles. Purkinje fibers transmit signal to ventricular cardiac muscle cell, causing contraction from the base upward.
Okay. So nampak tak jawapan yang berbeza antara Syah Danish dengan Iman? So Syah Danish dia bagi jawapan, you explain on the cardiac cycle. Okay, contraction, relaxation, systole, diastole tu kan. Tapi soalan ni, nampak apa trik dia? Dia cakap coordinated. Macam mana boleh berlaku cardiac cycle tu? Because the transmission of impulse, which is the answer by given by Iman tadi lah. So jawapan ada pada Iman tadi. Okay ha? So coordinated is the transmission. You have to explain on the transmission of impulse, which starts from the SA node. So jawapan tadi yang Iman Nadira bagi tu, that is your answer. Okay. So be careful, read the question carefully. Coordinated is the transmission of impulse. Macam mana cardiac cycle tu boleh berlaku? Kena ada transmission of impulse. Macam mana impulse tu terhasil dekat SA node. Okay. So SA node generate impulse, the first point that you can include in your answer. SA node generate impulse, and then impulse from the SA node spread through the atrial wall, causing the both atria to contract simultaneously. And then the impulse reaches to AV node or conducted to AV node. And then impulse will be delayed at AV node. And then from AV node, the impulse spread to the bundle of His, and then to the bundle branches towards the apex of the heart. Iman tadi instead of dia cakap apex, dia cakap base. Nah, hujung jantung lah, apex ke base of the heart. And then last point, impulse spread from the bundle branches to the Purkinje fibers, which is within the wall of ventricles, causing both ventricles to contract. So read the question carefully, okay? Okay, so next question. Describe the structures of red blood cells and how they ensure efficient oxygen transport. Soalan nak structure So 2 point. So maksudnya awak bagi satu structure dan apa kepentingan structure tersebut. Ensures efficiency tu. Okay. So we know that one obvious structure of red blood cell, it is biconcave disc shape. Okay, it is small biconcave disc shape. Apa signifikan dia, macam mana cara feature tu, structure tu help in the efficiency of oxygen transport to increase? It increases surface area. Okay, so more exchange of gas can occur. Okay, so increase surface area. Second structure that you can give is that a red blood cell doesn't have any nucleus. Okay, so when it doesn't have any nucleus, it gives more space for hemoglobin to fit into the red blood cell, so that more oxygen can bind to hemoglobin. Okay, so more space for hemoglobin. And then it also does not have any mitochondria. So this is to avoid oxygen carried by the red blood cells being used for cellular respiration. So instead, red blood cells respire via anaerobic metabolism. So kalau dia ada mitochondria, oksigen akan digunakan lah oleh sel tu. So kita tak nak kan. So no mitochondria. So instead of red blood cells respire using the normal cellular respiration, it respire using anaerobic respiration or metabolism, okay, to generate energy. So and then another point is that you can add that it has millions of hemoglobin. Okay, so when it has millions of hemoglobin, it can transport more oxygen. We know that so this is red blood cell kan, it is biconcave, so dia ada banyak hemoglobin. Okay, so satu hemoglobin structure dia, it has 4 subunits. Okay, so each subunit has ferrum. Okay, it has ferrum. So the function of the ferrum or the iron is to bind to oxygen molecule. So one hemoglobin can bind to 4 oxygen molecules. So imagine how much red blood cells can carry oxygen when it has millions of hemoglobin. So you just do your maths lah. Kan? So banyak satu red blood cell can carry a lot of oxygen molecule lah. So imagine kalau kita ada kalau average human has 5 liters of blood, so imagine how many red blood cells is within your body. So how many oxygen that your blood can carry. Okay. So that is the answer lah for question number 2. D. Okay, so describe decrease in blood pH causes increase in the heart rate. So explain the situation. Decrease in blood pH. So it means that the blood is acidic. Okay, it's acidic. So when blood is acidic, so it means that there is a lot of carbon dioxide. Okay, so your cell is respiring a lot. Okay, so it increases metabolism, it produces a lot of carbon dioxide, causes your blood pH to be acidic. Okay, so when your blood pH decrease, it causes heart rate to increase. Obviously, so bila kita dalam keadaan macam tu, contohnya you are exercising, you are actively moving, you produce a lot of carbon dioxide, your heart rate will increase. So this is to ensure more blood is circulating, more carbon dioxide is removed. Okay. So itulah jawapan dia kan. So point dia apa dia? Decreased blood pH means there's a high level of carbon dioxide in the blood. Okay, first point. Second point, so the low pH of blood is detected by the chemoreceptor. Okay, chemoreceptor, and then so this changes in blood pH will send impulse to the cardiac accelerator, causing SA node to increase heart rate. Okay, so heart pumps more blood. So this is to speed up the delivery of oxygen to the lung. Okay, and speed up the delivery of carbon dioxide to the lung and remove carbon dioxide through exhalation. Okay, so this also enhance delivery of oxygen to the body tissues. Okay, boleh?
Lagi sekali boleh, madam?
Lagi sekali. Okay, saya repeat Number 1, okay, kita tahu blood pH low means that the blood is acidic kan. So decreased blood pH mean there is a high level of carbon dioxide in the blood. Your cell is respiring, your cell is producing a lot of carbon dioxide causing your blood to be acidic. Nanti bila kita belajar respiratory system, darah yang ada dalam badan awak ni yang ada carbon dioxide, okay, so dia akan bertindak balas, dia akan jadi carbonic acid. So that's why your blood pH decrease tu. Dia akan jadi carbonic acid causing blood to be acidic. Okay. So that acidic condition, the low pH is detected by chemoreceptor. Okay, so chemoreceptor detect the changes and then it sends impulse to the cardiac accelerator to cause SA node to increase heart rate. Increase heart rate, so it means that heart pumps the blood more. So this speed up the delivery of carbon dioxide to the lung, to the pulmonary circuit, to remove or exhale carbon dioxide out of the body. So sama juga efek dia kepada oxygen delivery lah kan. So also enhances delivery of oxygen to the systemic circuit, okay, to the body tissues for gas exchange lah, to supply oxygen to the respiring tissues. Okay. So next question, Anemia is commonly caused by low number of healthy red blood cells, suggests how iron deficiency lead to anemia. Okay. So sepatutnya kan kita tahu this is your red blood cell. It contains millions of hemoglobin. Okay. Satu hemoglobin tadi, it binds to 4 oxygen molecule. Okay. So hemoglobin ni struktur dia ada 4 subunit kan. So setiap subunit tu ada ferrum. Ferrum is iron lah. So setiap tu akan bind dengan oxygen molecule. So 4 oxygen molecule bind to 1 hemoglobin. So kalau tak cukup iron, so sel darah yang terhasil tak mencukupi lah, faham tak? Okay. So the first point, iron or ferrum is needed to form hemoglobin. Okay. So when less iron is present, okay, less hemoglobin will be present in the red blood cells. So this decrease the production of red blood cells. Less oxygen can be carried by red blood cells, okay, or less oxygen bind to hemoglobin. So that leads to anemia lah, tak cukup oksigen yang dibawa dalam darah. Okay. Saya share sikit lah. You all tahu kan saya keguguran kan? Saya punya pregnancy sepatutnya hemoglobin untuk yang normal healthy person sepatutnya reading dia 12. Okay. Hemoglobin saya throughout pregnancy 10. Last saya measure 10.1. Okay. So that's why for pregnancy women, they have to make sure that the hemoglobin does not drop. Okay. So dia akan post threat kepada pregnancy lah. Tapi saya punya pregnancy daripada 1 sampai 3 memang hemoglobin saya tak pernah reach 12. Ada yang sampai 9. Tapi masa tu umur saya berapa? Umur saya baru 28 kalau first pregnancy tu. Macam tu. Okay. So there's a lot of factors that you have to take precaution lah during pregnancy, macam tu lah. Okay. So memang ada jenis orang memang HB dia rendah macam tu, but you have to you have to make sure that the hemoglobin maintains high. Okay. So itulah dia. Okay. Next question. Question 3. So state one function of vertebrate circulatory system. One function ini dia, kalau you all tengok pada you all punya notes kan, dia ada circulatory system kan. So dia ada cabang-cabang untuk apa? Untuk distribute nutrients throughout the body, to remove waste, and then to it also involve in immune system because your blood has red blood cells, antibodies to protect your body against infection by pathogens, to remove waste, to remove carbon dioxide, for gas exchange. So ada banyak lah kat situ. So there is a lot of point that you could add into your answer. Okay. Maintain body temperature and then transport hormones. Okay. Maintain fluid balance. Okay. Transport nutrients from digestive system to body cells, body tissues, to transport oxygen, carbon dioxide for gas exchange. Okay, so ada banyak lah. Defend body against pathogens because your blood contains white blood cells and antibodies. So ada banyak. So your circulatory system is related to the immune system, is also related to the respiratory system. It also relates to the hormones kan. So kita tahu kalau macam contohnya in our brains, it has the hypothalamus. Hanging from the hypothalamus, it has the pituitary glands, anterior and also posterior. Itu dekat kita punya brain lah. So anterior and also posterior pituitary also secrete hormones. Contohnya kalau one of the hormones secreted but from the pituitary gland is oxytocin. Oxytocin, LH, kita belajar hormon kita dah belajar reproductive system kan. So ada LH, ada apa nama? FSH secreted from the pituitary, kita ada oxytocin secreted from the pituitary. So that has to reach into the target organs. Target organ dia mana? Kat mana? Jauh kan? Which is kalau untuk lelaki the testis kan, kalau LH, FSH. Kalau untuk perempuan is the ovary, untuk FSH dengan LH. Jauh. So it has to travel along your blood circulation. So your circulatory system is really crucial because it relates with other system as well. Okay, so B, explain how the structure of hemoglobin is adapted for oxygen transport in our body. Explain how the structure. So kat sini nak structure of hemoglobin, how it is adapted for oxygen transport. Soalan yang tadi yang previously tu, dia tanya structure. So careful soalan tu, dia boleh tadi. Soalan ni dia tanya structure of red blood cells. Kan? Red blood cells, it has a lot of hemoglobin and this subunit has ferrum to bind to oxygen. And then itulah, ini structure red blood cells. By concave disc shape, semua itulah. Yang ini dia tanya pasal structure of hemoglobin. Okay, hemoglobin is adapted for oxygen transport. So apa dia? So jawapan dia tadi apa? It consists of 4 polypeptide chain, 4 subunit. Okay, 4 subunit consists of polypeptide chain. So each subunit it consists of ferrum or iron. Okay, so or hem group, right? Which bind to oxygen molecule. So one hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecule. So tu point-point dia lah. Saya repeat First point. Okay, so one molecule of hemoglobin consists of 4 subunits, okay, of polypeptide chain. So each subunit consists of ferrum or iron or hem group, which bind to oxygen molecule. So one hemoglobin binds to 4 oxygen molecule. So then next question, give one advantage of double circulatory system. Apa dia? To repressurize blood. Okay, to repressurize blood, to maintain high blood pressure that pumps into the systemic circuit. Okay, to provide a vigorous blood flow to the body organs. Okay, so tu antara point yang boleh letak lah. I repeat, heart repressurize the blood. Okay, to maintain high blood pressure. So to provide a vigorous blood flow to the body organs. And then double circulation juga, it ensures separation of deoxygenated and oxygenated blood. And then last, to ensure efficient transport of nutrients and also respiratory gases. Tapi poin yang paling penting kan, sebab poin satu marker ni is the most important point that you have to take note or make sure that you write is the heart repressurize the blood. Okay, so the first pumping, the blood enters into the pulmonary circuit for gas exchange. From oxygen poor blood, it becomes oxygen rich blood. Then masuk balik dalam jantung for second pumping of the heart, so that the heart pumps and repressurize the blood that enters into the systemic circuit, which is the longest circuit. Okay, itu dah akan pergi kat kepala, kaki semua kan. So it has to be distributed with high pressure, okay, throughout the body. Okay, so next, kita habiskan soalan ni. Sekejap. Kita take 5 kejap. Kita rehat tak dalam 5 minit. A few minutes. Dan kita sambung. Sekejap Okay, so let's continue with the next question. So figure 8 shows the longitudinal section of human heart. So name valve Q and R. So Q adalah AV valve. Okay, AV valve sebab dia located dekat left side kan, dan ada nama lain juga, mitral valve, bicuspid valve. Okay, and then R tu adalah, okay, R ni awak tengok dekat bahagian mana, left side kan, left side, and then dia akan masuk kepada aorta, right? So this is aortic semilunar valve. Okay, kalau yang ini dia semilunar valve juga tapi dia pergi kat pulmonary artery, right? So this is pulmonary semilunar valve. Okay, so both are semilunar valve. To be specific, awak kena tahu dia left ke right. Kalau left adalah aortic semilunar valve, kalau right dia adalah pulmonary semilunar valve. Right. Okay, R ni adalah aortic. Okay. State the function of valve R. Aortic tadi kan, aortic semilunar valve is to prevent backflow of the blood. So to prevent the backflow of blood back to the heart, back to the ventricle lah. Okay. So it keep blood moving in one direction pun boleh juga. So next question. Explain why the wall of left ventricle is thicker than the right. So ini semua orang mesti kena tahulah kan. So the left ventricle is much more thicker because it has to exert high pressure, so pumps the blood with high pressure out of the heart into the aorta, into the systemic circuit. Systemic circuit throughout the body lah, to your head, to your legs, semualah throughout the body. Tapi kalau right, the wall is thinner because the contraction of the ventricle to pump the blood into the pulmonary circuit. Dekat lung dekat je dengan heart kan, so doesn't have to exert high pressure as high as the left ventricle too. Okay, so that is why the left ventricle has to be thicker than the right ventricle to exert high pressure, so that the heart pumps the blood out of the heart into the systemic circuit. Okay, to produce higher pressure. And then figure 9 shows human lymphatic system, identify J and K. J apa? Dekat capillary beds kan? So apa lah? Capillary beds ataupun blood capillaries. K ni apa dia? Close-ended kan? Istilah dia close-ended. So dia tiba-tiba muncul situ kan? So this is lymphatic capillaries. Okay? Lymph capillaries. Name the type of cell that forms the wall of K and J. So dia one cell thick kan. Both blood capillaries and lymph capillaries, it has to be one cell thick. Okay, one cell thick. So and the wall of these two capillaries, they are made up of endothelial cells. Okay, endothelial cells or endothelium ataupun epithelial cells ataupun simple squamous. Okay, simple squamous ni dah belajar dulu semester lepas. Okay. So next question. Give two differences between fluid J and K. Fluid in J and K. Fluid in J is blood. Okay, blood. K, the fluid is lymph. Okay. So soalan ni basically it asks you to differentiate between blood and lymph lah. So dua markah, dua perbezaan. Okay. So the first point, blood obviously it contains red blood cells. Okay, because it has red blood cell, it is reddish in color. Okay, reddish color fluid. And then for lymph, it has no red blood cell, it is colorless fluid. And then for blood, it is part of the circulatory system. Lymph, it is part of lymphatic system. And then kalau blood ni, it carries more oxygen. Okay, it carries more oxygen and more nutrients. And then kalau lymph ni, it carries less oxygen and less nutrients. Okay. And then kalau blood, it carries more protein. Okay, more protein, more ions, okay, such as calcium, phosphorus. And then lymph, it has less proteins, right? And then blood flows with high pressure, high velocity, okay? Kalau lymph flows with low pressure, low velocity, and then kalau blood, because it has clotting factors, the platelets semua tu, it clots quickly. And then lymph, it clots slowly. Okay, and then the last point that you could include, jawapan you all, blood, it has low amount of carbon dioxide. Okay, kalau lymph, it has high amount of carbon dioxide. So you all cari kenapa, saya tahu jawapan dia, but you all cari kenapa blood ni it has low carbon dioxide, lymph it has high amount of carbon dioxide. That is for your homework. Kenapa lymph ada carbon dioxide yang tinggi, kenapa blood ada carbon dioxide yang rendah? Perbandingan antara dua fluid ni. Okay, so next, question number 4. Blood is made up of several components that can be separated by centrifugation. So state two main components. So bila kita centrifuge blood, dia akan separate into two kan. Satu yang the upper part tu is the blood plasma. Okay, blood plasma, it is 55% of blood composition. And then yang bahagian bawah, bila you centrifuge your blood tu, kan, so blood plasma, 55%. Okay. Then bawah ni adalah cellular elements. Kan, cellular element especially it has the red blood cells. Okay. So 45%. Kat sini ada macam satu lapisan lagi, less than 1%. Itu ada platelets. Macam itulah. Okay. Okay, so number 10. Yeah, ini cellular element. Cellular element 45%. Okay, so next figure 10 shows relationship of J, K and blood pressure in different blood vessels. Kat sini dia bagi aorta sampai blood capillaries lah. Okay, so J ni kita tahu dia adalah total cross-sectional area. Okay, total cross-sectional area. Tulis betul-betul K tu adalah blood velocity. Okay, blood velocity. Yang ni adalah blood pressure lah. So as we see from this graphs, okay, we know that, okay, aorta, it has the lowest total cross-sectional area. Okay, as the blood flows into arteries and arterioles, the total cross-sectional area increases. Sebab lebih banyak cabang kan, lebih banyak cabang, so total cross-sectional area increase. So as blood flows from aorta into arteries into arterioles, the velocity will reduce. Okay, the velocity will reduce sebab apa? Daripada aorta, dan aorta dia bercabang, cabang lagi, dan cabang lagi. The total cross-sectional area increase. So bila orang tengoklah macam contohnya aliran air lah kan. So when there's more cabang, so the velocity will reduce. Okay, when velocity reduce, so does the blood pressure. Okay, so does the blood pressure. So that is the relationship lah. Okay. So identify what are factors J and K in the graph. Tadi dah identify tadi kan, total cross-sectional area for J. K adalah blood velocity. Okay, so now you have to relate, okay, total cross-sectional area dengan velocity ni. To the changes in blood pressure as blood flows away from the heart. Flows away daripada aorta ke artery, ke arterioles, ke blood capillaries kan. Blood capillaries. So kat sini you have to explain the changes of these factors as blood flows from aorta, artery, arterioles into blood capillaries, okay, away from the blood. So your answer can be written as follows. Ini you dengar nanti saya bagi recording, okay? But that doesn't mean you stop listening so please. So as blood flows away from the heart, blood pressure is the greatest in the aorta, okay, with the smallest total cross-sectional area and flows with the highest velocity. Okay, so next point, as blood enters into the arteries, into the arterioles and blood capillaries, blood pressure decreases as the total cross-sectional area increase and velocity decrease. Boleh nanti you all rewind balik, dengar balik lah. So kalau ikut logik pun awak boleh tengok je, analyse. Okay. Okay, so you just look at the graphs and relate all the factors. Okay. Okay, so next question, figure 11 shows Iskandar cardiac cycle. Okay, so if Iskandar cardiac cycle takes 0.8 second, okay, to complete, calculate his heart rate. Heart rate, berapa degupan jantung in 1 minute kan? Okay, satu degupan jantung tu, satu heart rate, it takes 0.8 second. So kat sini ada formula yang you all kena ingat lah. Ini memang formula yang you all kena ingat. Okay, heart rate, okay, which is ada punya unit apa, beat per minute kan? Beat per minute ni. Okay, beat per minute. Sama dengan apa? 60 second bahagi dengan 0.8 saat. So bahagikan dapat berapa? Tolong. What is your heart rate?
$75.
75 unit dia apa?
Beat per minute.
Okay, betul. Thank you Adlina. Okay. So tu jawapan dia. So you must write the units Tak ada unit, tak ada markah. Ini dah satu markah je. Kalau dah nak tekan calculator, tiba tak tulis unit. Salah lah. Okay. 75 beats per minute. Okay. So and then what is meant by stroke volume? Okay, stroke volume, it is the volume of blood pumped by ventricle in a single contraction or in a heartbeat. Okay. Kita tahu kan, stroke volume ni daripada dalam mana? Cardiac output, formula tadi kan? Stroke volume tadi dengan heart rate. So stroke volume is how much blood is pumped out of the ventricle in one contraction, in one heartbeat. Okay, so based on C1 tu tadi apa? 75 kan unit dia? 75 beats per minute tadi kan? Okay. Calculate Iskandar stroke volume if his cardiac output is 5,325 ml. Siti Nurul Aisyah, apa jawapan awak? What is your answer please?
Madam, soalan ni saya skip.
Kenapa? Cardiac output. Apa formula dia? Cardiac output sama dengan berapa? Apa tadi? Stroke volume kali dengan heart rate kan?
Ya,
So soalan dia nak apa? Stroke volume kan?
betul madam.
Cuba letak dalam formula tu dapat berapa?
Okey.
Sekejap. Muhammad Rafiq. Apa jawapan awak?
71.
Apa tengah buat?
71 madam.
71 unit?
ml per beat.
Okay, betul. Okay, the answer is 71 ml per beat. So you just insert all the values and you get the stroke volume as 71 ml per beat. Unit kena tulis. Okay, so please. Okay, sekejap. Okay, next. Figure 12 shows part of capillary surrounded by tissue fluid. The value of blood pressure in capillary and osmotic pressure in tissue are provided. Based on figure 12, I explain how tissue fluid is formed. Tissue fluid tu adalah apa? Interstitial fluid lah, kan? So fluid yang kat sini, tissue fluid ni. So if you look at this diagram here, you have to explain how interstitial fluid is formed by relating with blood pressure, osmotic pressure and also blood pressure. So kat sini tengok atrial end. Atrial end, blood akan datang daripada atrial end with high pressure, which is in this case is 35 millimeter mercury. Outside the blood capillaries, the pressure is lower, which is 25%. Because the blood pressure flows with high pressure, we know that here is blood capillaries, right? So blood capillaries, it is porous. Okay, so due to the blood that flows with high pressure at the atrial end, it causes fluid from the blood, okay, to exit out of the capillaries and enters into the osmotic pressure with lower pressure, which is 25%. 25 millimeter mercury. So and then as the blood flows towards the venule end with lower blood pressure, which is 18 millimeter mercury compared to the osmotic pressure outside, so fluid will enter back into the blood capillaries at the venule end. Faham So relatekan dia. Kenapa boleh terhasilnya tissue fluid ni? Disebabkan oleh perbezaan pressure dalam darah, dalam blood capillaries and also in the tissue fluid tu. Okay. So saya bacakan jawapan, you all dengar, okay, dan digestkan. Sama je jawapan dia dengan saya punya explanation. Point number 1. At the atrial end, okay, the blood pressure, which is 35 millimeter mercury, exceed the osmotic pressure or is higher than the osmotic pressure, which is 25 millimeter mercury. Ataupun untuk point yang sama, you write higher blood pressure at the atrial end. So point number 2, apa kesan dia? It causes the fluid from the plasma, okay, to flows out of the capillary into the fluid tissue. Into the tissue fluid. So next point, at the venule end, the blood pressure, which is 18 millimeter mercury, is less than the osmotic pressure. Which is 25 millimeter mercury. Ataupun untuk point yang sama, lower blood pressure at the venule end. So blood flows from the tissue into the blood plasma in the capillaries. Sekejap saya. So digestkan yang tadi. Ada soalan boleh tanya. Okay, next question. State one reason why the blood pressure falls from atrial end of the capillary to the venule end of the capillary. One reason why pressure fall from atrial end. Kenapa pressure ni kita tengok kan? Daripada 35 jadi 18. Okay. Because we know that the feature of blood capillaries, it is porous. Okay, it is porous, so therefore there will be movement of fluid or water from the blood in the capillaries into the surrounding tissue fluid. Okay. So next question. Distinguish between open and closed circulatory system. Distinguish, so you have to differentiate. Okay. So 2 marks for 2 differences. Kalau open circulatory system, blood is confined. Sorry, blood is not confined. Okay, blood is not confined within the blood vessels. Okay, kalau closed, blood is confined within the blood vessels. Second point, blood untuk open, blood is pumped into body cavity. We call it as hemocoel. Hemocoel, okay. Hemocoel is body cavity. Okay, so the heart pumps the blood into open-ended blood vessels, and then blood enters into body cavity, which is hemocoel, and then there's a mixture between blood and interstitial fluid. Okay, so point yang ketiga lah, mixture between blood and interstitial fluid. Kalau yang point yang ketiga ni kan, so blood does not mix with interstitial fluid. Kalau point number 2, blood is pumped throughout the blood vessels. Okay. Boleh saya repeat point number 1, okay, blood is not confined within blood vessels. Yang ni, blood is confined within blood vessels. Number 2, blood is pumped into body cavity, which is hemocoel. And then yang ni, blood is pumped throughout the blood vessels. And then point number 3, blood and interstitial fluid mix. And then kalau closed, blood and interstitial fluid does not mix. Okay, so next one, suggest why flatworms do not have circulatory system, because they depend on gastrovascular cavity. 1 point. Another point, because flatworms has flat body, which is a small body size that increases surface area for exchange of gas. So exchange of gas, exchange of nutrients. So so that's why it does not require a circulatory system. Okay. So next, fish have a single circulatory system while mammals have double. So which is more efficient? Double lah, kan? 2 markah. Point dia apa? Double circulatory system is more efficient. Sebab apa? To repressurize blood with high pressure. Okay, so repressurize, the double circulatory system maintains high blood pressure ataupun repressurize blood pressure. And then this is to ensure efficient distribution of nutrients and oxygen and removal of waste and also carbon dioxide. So ensures vigorous blood flows. Okay, ensures vigorous blood flow pun boleh juga. So next, figure 13 shows conduction system of the heart. R tu adalah SA node. Okay, explain the significance of D1, which is SA node during contraction of atria. Tadilah, it function as pacemaker. Okay, so SA node function or act as pacemaker that initiates the generation of impulse. It initiates heartbeat. Okay, and then SA node produces electrical signal or impulse that spread rapidly through the gap junction, and also SA node sets the rate or timing of cardiac muscle cell contraction. Okay. So next, what happen if? So next question, what happen if Purkinje fibers fail to function normally? Maksudnya tak adalah transmission of impulse in the ventricular wall, so ventricle cannot contract. No ventricle systole. Macam itulah kan. So Purkinje fibers kat mana? Ventricular wall. Kalau tak ada transmission along Purkinje fibers, ventricle cannot contract. Okay. No contraction of ventricle. Contraction of ventricle from base upward cannot occur. Macam itulah kan. So Purkinje fibers cannot transmit impulse to the surrounding cardiac muscles to the apex of the heart. Tak boleh. Okay. Or cannot receive impulse from the AV branches. So last question dah. Last question. Figure 14 shows ECG. So describe the event that occurs dekat QRS. Ni, events ni. QRS adalah apa? It is ventricular systole. Event that occurs ni adalah cerita pasal transmission of impulse dekat along the ventricular wall tu. Okay. So jawapan dia apa? You all hear my answer. So please take note. So for the first point, electrical signal or impulse transmitted from the AV node. Okay. Kat sini dia start dekat mana? Kita tengok saksi jantung kat sini kan. So ini AV node. AV node. Okay. So electrical signal transmitted from the AV nodes and travel through the bundle of His. Kat sini. Bundle of His and then to the bundle branches. So this is bundle branches along the septum. And then spread to the apex, then reaches the apex of the heart, and then spread to the Purkinje fibers in the ventricular wall, okay, in the ventricular muscle tissue. And then this causes the ventricle to contract or undergo systole from base, from the apex of the heart upward, okay, upward. So the blood is pumped into the aorta and also pulmonary circuit, which is located at the upper part of the heart. Okay. So that is what happened during QRS complex. Ventricular systole basically. Habis. Ada soalan tak? Any question from the MCQ? From part A, part B ni, chapter 6. Tak ada Saya kalau tak ada soalan, saya nak bagi jawapan untuk part untuk chapter reproductive system. Buat tak? Have you done the questions? Kelas, dapat ke soalan?
Dah, madam.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read out the answers. Please check your answer. So chapter 4 reproductive system part A, number 1 is A, number 2 B, number 2 C, number 3 A, number 4 C, number 5 A, number 6 D, number 7 D, number 8 B, number 9 D, number 10 C, 11 C, 12. Apa jawapan 12 ni? Figure 2 shows cross section of identify the stigma. Oh, stigma yang mana? Stigma mana kelas?
G, madam.
G ke? G bukan enter.
E, E.
Nah, stigma E kan? Pollen land on stigma kan? So pollen tu daripada G, which is enter. So dia land on E, which is stigma. Ya, E lah. Betul lah. Okay. So next, number 13D, number 14C, 15D, 16D, 17B, 18A, 19A, 20B, 21B, 22C, 23A, 24C, 25D, 26B, 27C, 28A, 29A, 30B, 31C, 32C, 33B, 34B, 35D, 36C, 37D, 38D, 39B, 40C, 41C, 42C, 43B, 44C, 45A, 46C, 47B, 48A, 49D. Go through the questions. If you have question and would like to discuss any of it, please ask. I give you a few minutes for you to go through the part A. Jawapan untuk chapter 6 part A you all dah ada kan? Dah ada ke belum? Okay. Tak ada soalan
Tak ada, madam.
Okay. Tak ada, kita move on to part B. Okay, so figure 9 shows cycle X of human female reproductive system. Kalau kita tengok sini dia cycle apa? Ovarian cycle. So because it shows you what happened in the ovary, what happened to the follicles in the ovary. Okay, this ovarian cycle. Name the hormone secreted by the growing follicle and identify the action of this hormone on the uterus. So hormone that is secreted by the growing follicle apa dia? Estrogen, kan? So the growing follicle, kan? So this is the growing follicle. The growing follicle as it grows, kan? What happened in the ovary, okay? What happened in the ovarian cycle will affect the menstrual cycle, which is what happened in the uterus, okay? So kita consider kat sini, this is the primary follicle, the small follicle that is chosen to grow each month. Again, so as the follicle grows, it adds more follicular cells. When more follicular cell is produced, it secretes more estrogen. Okay, so the function of ovary kita tahu is to produce estrogen. So estrogen yang terhasil daripada ovary tu, dia pergi ke mana? Dia pergi kepada target organ dia. Target organ dia apa dia? The uterus. As the follicle grows, it secretes more estrogen, kan? Secretes more estrogen. So as more estrogen is secreted, it causes the uterine lining to thicken. Okay, it causes the uterine lining to thicken, stimulate the thickening of endometrium lining. So here at day 14 is when ovulation occurs. So when ovulation occurs, the follicle ruptures and releases secondary oocyte. Okay, secondary oocyte goes into the fallopian tube for fertilization by the sperm cells, or fertilization can also occurs in the uterus. Okay, and then the rupture follicle will form apa ni apa nama yang ni, corpus luteum. Okay, corpus luteum. So the function of corpus luteum to secrete estrogen and progesterone. Okay, so progesterone is to maintain the thickening of endometrium lining. So if there's fertilization occurs, it is ready for the implantation of fertilized egg. Okay, so but if there's no fertilization, the corpus luteum will degenerate. Okay, and the production of progesterone and estrogen decrease. If estrogen progesterone secretion decrease by the ovary, it causes the endometrium lining to slot off sebab tak ada hormon untuk maintain the endometrium lining, kan? So if there's no fertilization, so dekat sini kan, kalau you all tengok kat sini, as the estrogen secretion increase, okay, so this exert negative feedback to the hypothalamus. Okay, negative feedback to the hypothalamus yang ni. Sekejap. Bukan ni. Sorry. The increase, the high estrogen and progesterone exert negative feedback to the hypothalamus. Okay, so when there's negative feedback, LH dengan FSH secretion ni decrease. So kat sini dia akan stop the next follicle from growing. So that's why kalau seseorang itu dia pregnant kan, estrogen progesterone level ni tinggi, dia akan exert negative feedback supaya tak ada LH dengan FSH untuk cause the next follicle to grow. So that's why bila pregnancy kita tak ada period semua tu, sebab this prevents the next follicle from maturing, macam tu. Okay, tapi bila estrogen progesterone decrease, so it removes the negative feedback. So bolehlah ada FSH, LH dah sebaik semula, the next follicle grow, okay, for the next cycle. Okay, so yang ini you all kena tengok balik ya dalam you all punya notes apa yang berlaku. Okay, so name the hormone secreted by the growing follicle and identify the action of this hormone. Estrogen, kan, estrogen by the growing follicle promote the thickening of endometrium lining. Identify event X, it is ovulation. X, so ovulation, ovulation. And then state the function of LH and the gland that produces this hormone. Gland yang produce LH adalah anterior pituitary. Okay, function of LH is to cause it triggers ovulation, okay, or develop it aids FSH to stimulate follicle growth. Okay, so LH, the function of LH kan, LH is to aid the function of FSH to stimulate follicle to grow. Okay. Okay, question number 2. State one characteristics of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, there's no fertilization, there's no gamete fusion, there's no gamete involved, there's no meiosis. Okay, it involves only mitosis. It only involves one parent. Okay, and then the offspring is genetically identical. There's no genetic variation, and then it is the most fastest and efficient way of reproducing, and it has to produce a lot of offspring with less energy required for reproduction. Kenapa less energy? Sebab apa? Tak perlu nak spend energy to find partners for fertilization to occur, kan? So that requires a lot of energy. So because there's no requirement for mating, so there's less energy required for reproduction. Okay, B, figure 10 shows a type of cell division. State one example of a cell. Sekejap, mana ni? B. Apalah, kita stop dulu lah. Boleh tak? Dah banyak dah saya kita discuss. Ni kita sambung nanti. Boleh?
Boleh, Madam.
Okay. So kalau tak ada apa-apa, kita boleh end our session. But if you have question, you can ask. Okay, thank you, class.
Thank you, Madam.
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 Okay, sama.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Alright.
Okay, madam.
Okay, sama.